Hi, my name is Sarah Jerem, and you're watching Artistic Digs. This series shines a spotlight on musical contemporaries who inspire me to talk with them and learn more about their creative space. I am so excited to introduce our special guest for today on Artistic Digs, the one and only Rob McBride. Thanks so much for
Oh, thanks for having me.
joining. So, full disclosure, we are in the same house, two different devices. Just makes it easier for, editing things out afterwards. But yes, don't worry, we're not breaking any pandemic rules because we happen to be also members of the same household.
Yes.
So, I'm gonna just do a little introduction, just to introduce everybody to the wonderfulness of you. So, Rob McBride is a bassist and band leader who has been performing in the Toronto jazz scene for the last 25 years, playing at many of the city's top jazz venues. While specializing in jazz, Rob is also influenced by solo, classical, and improvised bass music and has incorporated creative aspects of these elements into his sound through his 5-string acoustic bass. He has played at many notable jazz festivals over the years and with many notable Canadian musicians. Rob is also a member of the contemporary jazz quartet Dream Logic, alongside Sarah Jerem, Harley Card, and Jeff Luciani. So, welcome again.
Thank you.
What's been getting you through the pandemic?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's been a very long year, and it's been hard to, with barely any gigs at all. It's been a hard year. When the pandemic first started, one of the saving graces, if you will, was I had just signed up for an online bass course with Lauren Pierce, who's like an amazing classical bassist, and she had started up this 6-month program in January, and yeah, so it really helped make the first half of the pandemic go a lot smoother because I had that to look forward to every day. Lots of group classes and social online interaction, and it really helped quite a bit.
Good. Wow.
Yeah.
And what year did you get your 5-string?
I believe I got that in 2019, just at the end of 2019.
So, right before the pandemic.
He
Wait,
must
oh
have been
no.
2018. I had it a
Right,
year
sorry.
before the
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it
Yeah,
was a relatively new instrument.
it was, yeah, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to take the class to just work out some technical issues on the bass, and Lauren is a great teacher and helped me tremendously with that and how to kind of map things out on the bass.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And just to give people a background, you've been playing jazz for a number of years, but you've been working more on your arco playing on the bowed
Yes.
bass, playing more for the past, how many years has it been?
I would say like maybe like the last 3 to 4 years, but um, I had never had really any classical training. It was always like jazz school and doing jazz performances, jazz gigs all the time. So, the opportunity arose where Lauren announced this class, and I, had been working on it on my own, but I knew there were probably many things that I was doing incorrectly. So might as well figure it out and have an amazing teacher show me what to do. Um, it was a great experience.
Wow, cool. And like you had been playing bowed bass like
Yeah.
on the Yates project in 2017, but yeah, and then getting the new instrument and the 5th string. Let's talk more
Yeah,
about your 5-string,
sure.
actually.
Yeah. A few years ago, I was, practicing quite a bit, and in between practicing, getting caught up, like, in the YouTube world and checking things out. And many years ago, I got a CD by Renaud Garcia Fons, and I always loved his playing. And then I started seeing like videos of him pop up, and like he's one of the greatest five string players around. He's based in Paris, and it was just such an inspiration. And I loved the sound. I always liked playing in the higher register of the instrument, and this just added another level to it, and really turned it into even more of a solo instrument. So I got kind of caught up in that, and then I started seeing different people having basses made, and stuff like that. And I looking online, I found a place, Upton Bass in the States, that they were the first ones that I saw where like there was like five string option. I'm sure there are many others that could have done it, but that's the one that popped up. And I started talking with them and designing a bass, and that's where it came from.
Cool. And just so people are aware, can you talk about the difference between your five string and a normal four string bass? And because you were talking about like having a higher range on this new instrument, so maybe you can.
Yeah, so the bass is typically four strings, you know, for E, A, D, and G. Those are the strings, and
E being
you
the
know,
lowest, right?
E being the lowest. And usually, if there was a five string bass around, it would typically be a lower string, so a low B string. Um, but rarely, very rarely, they you could go the opposite way and have a high C string, and it puts the bass in a just this extra, not necessarily range, but it's definitely easier to play in a higher range, and it sounds almost cello like, the quality of the string.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's been really inspiring having that to kind of like listen to all the time when we're home practicing. It's like the soundtrack to
That's
our.
nice of you to say. Yeah.
Well, no, because I get to hear that, and then if I'm writing something, then I know what
Yeah.
it's gonna sound like, and it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So
Yeah.
it sounds really cool. Um, so yeah, yeah. So you've been practicing a lot.
I've been
Um,
practicing a lot, and studying a lot as well.
yeah.
Um, Lauren's course ended in the summer, and then one of her friends, who's another amazing bassist and amazing teacher, Dr. Kate Jones, who's also based out of Texas. And I just, out of the blue, and this is kind of maybe the the beauty of the online world right now, is you might decide to study with somebody that you never even thought to, because you can. So I just contacted Kate to see if she was available for private lessons, and she made a spot available for me, and I've been studying with her on pretty much a weekly basis since September or October. Um, and again, it's just different things, classical things that I never had the opportunity to learn when I was a younger player learning the bass. So she started me at some very basic things. We're working out of the Suzuki books, and but it's really helping fine tune the instrument for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Exciting. So, two things that were advantage to, this time have been that you were about to start a bass course on Zoom in January
Yes.
2020. And we were like, what's Zoom?
Yes.
And also all this extra practice time. But
Yeah.
you have been gigging as well. I mean, limited gigging, but there's been some really, like, I'm just gonna introduce this for you a little bit, is like these gigs have dropped from the sky, like the
Yeah.
ones that you've had.
Yeah. It was pretty much a complete dry spell from the middle of March till the end of June, at least for myself. And you know, then my good friends, Carissa Neufeld and Michael Skinner, who owned a music school in Toronto, on the Offbeat Music School, they had the idea, along with a restaurant that was across the street from them, to uh, kind of do an outdoor series from their property. So we're not taking up any space at the restaurant, and we're socially distanced. Carissa and Michael were married, so they could be as close as they wanted, like piano and drums, and I would be well over 6 feet away from them outside. And so, weather pending, we would play there on Friday nights in the summer, and then which was just great to actually play. And then, of course, Dream Logic. You may have heard of them. I'm not sure. Uh, we had this amazing outdoor gig, backyard gig in our neighborhood that our neighborhood kind of threw together for us to try and get get work and promote art when there was not a lot happening.
Yeah. Yes, let's give a shout out to Charlotte and Alex, who live in
Yes.
our neighborhood. They organized the shed, and we were the first concert. And I think maybe we were the only concert because after
Yeah,
that,
because
like
it
we
was
had
right at
a,
the end of the summer.
it was on the very last day of August, and
Yes.
like basically like the yard was big enough, the area we were playing was big enough. We were all well over 6 feet apart, and it was like just like the layout of this person's yard, Moni, was amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, we got lucky, and the weather was like
It was perfect.
it
Yeah.
was perfect, like 26 degrees and sunny, and I think that was a lot. Well, that was my only gig,
Yeah.
but probably your last one
Yeah.
before the
There's
winter.
very maybe one every 2 weeks up until
Yeah,
December if I was lucky. Yeah.
yeah, and those were all like these is
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
whatever we could do to make it work and be
Yeah.
safe, and mostly outside, a lot of
Yeah.
outside cold gigs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go back to before we knew each other. Even though we grew up in the same town, we didn't meet for 29 years,
Yeah.
um so what got you into the bass in the first place?
Well, I think this is kind of I think a common thing with a lot of bass players is that I started on guitar probably around grade 8 or 9, and playing pop music, rock music on guitar, and I wanted to learn how to actually read music and things like that. So I joined the jazz band, playing just kind of strumming guitar in the big band.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the year, the bass player at our school switched schools, and all of a sudden they needed a bass player. And I think that's the common theme with a lot of bassists is all of a sudden they needed a bass player. So I decided
Yeah.
to I got a cheap electric bass and started learning, and didn't really like it at first, but it slowly warmed on me, and I got into it. And the other fortunate thing being at the collegiate high school in St. Catharines is they actually had an acoustic bass there,
Mm.
and so every once in a while I'd go over and play on it, and then I think I was allowed to maybe take it home for that summer and just work on it, and just slowly kind of fell in love with the instrument.
Yeah. Wow. And here we are.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And so then so in high school, and I already know a lot of this information, but most people who are watching don't. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
asking some leading questions here. But so, um, in high school, you started playing bass, you practiced that summer, and then like you were playing gigs fairly early on, right? In the
Yeah.
Niagara jazz scene.
Yeah. Well, first of all, my high school teacher, Steve Freilich, he'd always managed to get our little jazz combo, like these odd little gigs, like in paying gigs. Like it's not like he was trying to get us to play for free or anything like that. Like just actual experience playing music.
Yeah.
And there was a jam session in St. Catharines at the Mansion House that a lot of the local players would play at, and they would always welcome me up, like from not being very good to slowly getting things together. Oh, and I just thought there was another place too called the Club, which was only around for a few years, I believe.
Yeah.
But they would let our high school band perform there, and they do have jazz every Tuesday night. So either the getting to perform or see it live, and getting to see some people, like some really good musicians come. Duncan Hopkins, who is from St. Catharines, he would play there once in a while and bring some amazing players, like he'd bring Dave or Steve O'Down, Sean Nyquist, like Kevin Dempsey, like all these inspiring musicians.
Wow.
And then in my last year of high school, actually, it was my 19th birthday. I got a gig with this local Dixieland band called the Bill Stevens Dixieland Band, um, who Warren Sturtzinger, who was a great guitar player from here, he got me into the group, and from there, like I just started playing professionally.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. Warren Sturtzinger and Randy Sturtzinger are big names
Yeah.
in our St. Catharines jazz scene. Yeah, I remember actually seeing that Dixieland band play maybe in grade 10 or something. It was probably the first, I don't know if you were in that band at the time, but it was like the first live jazz concert I probably ever saw.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, heavy. And oh, just let's go back to the Mansion House jam, because I know you have a good story about Kenny and
Yes.
The Mansion House.
Yeah. I want to say I was in maybe first or second year at Humber at the time, and I would often come home to St. Catharines on the weekends. I worked at Sandler Command still, and I would play at the Mansion House and play at the Prince of Wales after that. So it was one December that I'm playing there, and I'm sitting in the window that's facing the parking garage, and I'm just having a beer. It is a snowstorm outside. It's like, horrible weather. Like the place wasn't very busy. And, you know, all of a sudden I see this guy walking towards the club, and it's like, I'm pretty sure that's Kenny Wheeler. And sure enough, it was Kenny Wheeler. And you know, I don't think I had too much to drink, but it was just like one of those situations where, you're playing at a place and somebody comes to play or like watch, sit in, whatever, and you just really never know who's going to show up at your gig. But I remember after that, for a good 2 or 3 years, I did not have a drop of alcohol on a gig, just because you never know who's going to show up, and you want to be prepared for anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and also, the reason Kenny was in town is because he's, got a lot of family in
Yes.
St.
Yeah, I should
Catharines.
have. He would come down in December off, like around Christmas time, off to visit family. So
Yeah.
that, which I didn't know at the time, you know, but it
Yeah.
was pretty hilarious. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I know. I never like. I was. He's like the Pokeroo. Like I never
Yeah.
got to see him have a Kenny encounter at. Well, I wasn't into jazz so early on as you, but yeah, that's a good story though.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when you were at Humber, who did you study
Mhm.
with?
Well, in my first year at Humber, I studied with Lenny Boyd, or for the first year, half a year,
Yeah.
and I was in Pat LaBarbera's ensemble, which was actually, I did that for I think 3 years. It was such an amazing experience. But I knew, like, Don Thompson was there, and I would always bug Don to have lessons with him, and he always would kind of not brush me off, but he was a busy guy, and you know, but then, like, he actually, in the second semester of my first year, he had a student, like, just that dropped out of school, and he had a time slot open up on a Friday when he could have just gone home, but he said he actually gave me that time slot, so I had a lesson with him every 2 weeks for half a year, just because he felt like doing it. And that to me was such an an amazing opportunity. And then I studied with him for the rest of my time there. Just these um, lessons where, like we rarely actually talked about bass. It was more just about music and how to his approach and other people's approaches, and just it was just this great learning experience. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, and I was also in my last year. I also got the opportunity to study with Mike Downs, who is not only a great bass player but a great technician on the instrument and could really explain how to do things on the instrument. It was I still remember things that he said, like when I'm practicing. It's like, oh yeah, Mike said this 20 years ago.
Yeah. It sticks, eh?
Yeah,
That's cool. Um, Going back to your studies with Don, a lot of the stuff that it's just I think it's so awesome because I hear a lot of the information that Don has given you, and then it's come into me as well because
hmm
we've talked about like the piano aspect of things and how all five fingers have their own independent melody line. I mean, like in an amazing
yeah.
virtuosic world. But I think about that all the time when I'm writing, and it's just amazing that uh, like how teaching and mentorship and is so important because it carries through all these different channels and sub channels.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like his approach was so unique, and it's like the guy that like he kind of like acts like it's all like I don't know, like so natural, yet he knows everything that's happening and he can hear every single thing. Um, so I remember like we'd be like working on tunes or something, and I'd say, oh, like what's that chord, and he would just say like, for example, like, oh, that's just D, like no harmony over top. And his explanation is like one pianist might make that D minor, one might make it like a D altered chord. It's like just this is the root. Now use your ears and listen to what other people are doing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow. So the bass that you have for many years, your four string. Do you want to talk a little bit about that since we're on the topic of
sure.
Don Thompson?
Yeah. Well, so again, when I was at Humber, I think I was in third year at this point, and maybe second year. I can't remember. But anyway, like, I'm studying with Don a lot, and also in his ensemble. And one day he just called me into his office, and he's like, I don't really like your bass. I don't think it really sounds that great. And then he brings out a bass and says, here, use this until you can afford a good one. And it was this bass that was made for him by somebody in Vancouver, I believe. And it was quite a few steps up from what I had, like a real carved bass. And I really ended up using it for at least 6 or 7 years, I would say. And that was just another amazing thing that he did. And so the bass that I have now, um, he brought it in one day to school. Actually, he would leave it at school quite a bit in his office to like play with his piano students sometimes.
Mhm.
And he brought it into ensemble once, and he said, "Here, like try it out, see what you think." And I played it. It's a older German bass from like the late 1800s, and just played so easily. And I remember like a week or so later, I just decided I called him up and said, um, if you're ever thinking of selling this bass, I'd love to buy it. And you know, at the time, he's like, oh, I don't know. It's like I use it for touring quite a bit, and but he said, if he's not touring too much anymore, he would definitely consider it. And at the time, I thought he was just kind of again, not blowing me off, but just saying, well, maybe I don't know. And then like fast forward maybe 5 or 6 years later, I just get this random message on my answering machine saying, Rob, this is Don Thompson. I'm that was a horrible impression. Uh, and he said, I'm ready to sell the bass if you're interested in buying it. So I had to scramble some finances together, and I think I've had it since 2006 maybe, and it's just this easy bass to play. Um, it's it yeah, I can't even describe it. You know,
Yeah.
it's so happy to have it.
Yeah. So, let's talk about some of your influences. Who would you say are your biggest influences?
Um, when I started out, I think Paul Chambers for sure, because when you're first starting out, like all the records from the 50s and 60s, it's Paul Chambers on bass. All the Miles things, which is a great start. And then I remember hearing Niels Henning, Ørsted Peterson, in Oscar Peterson's trio, and then just being like, "Oh my God, I had no idea bass could do that." you know, and from there, then I got this Bill Evans box set with Mark Johnson, which again completely changed my concept of how to approach the instrument. Just the way every note that he played sustained through everything. Um, yeah, so to answer your question, Paul Chambers, Mark Johnson, and in later years, discovered John Patitucci and like guys like Avishai Cohen, who are just constantly putting out great music and great bass playing. And then going to school in Toronto, there were so many great local bass players too. I remember I did this Humber College summer program. I think it was the very first year that they did it. And Ingrid Jensen, who was not new to the scene, but like newer to, like, her first album I think had just come out. She was playing at the Senator that week with and Neil Swainson was on bass. And I think I went almost every night, just blown away by Neil's playing. And then Jim Vivian as well. Like, I would say Neil, Jim, for like, they were just playing all the time. You got to see them up close and like, oh, that's how you do that. That's how they're doing this. And just
Yeah.
such a great experience. The music scene in Toronto.
Absolutely. Wow. Other than bass, I, Bill Evans, like you're
Mhm.
hugely influenced by a lot of his music, and I know this
Yeah.
because I know you.
Yeah.
And of course Kenny. But you want to talk about anybody like that?
Like, I would say Bill Evans' music, Kenny Wheeler's music, and for me, like John Coltrane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was just drawn to his sound right away, and so I think those are maybe my three kind of biggest influences that are like non-bass players.
Yeah, because we have listened to a lot of that music over the
Yeah.
past 13 years, and it's been
Yeah.
awesome. What have you been listening to recently?
Well, like I would say a lot of classical music over the last year because of, first of all, Lauren's course, where she would, at least for the first, I think, like couple months of the course, would have a new playlist for us every week. And it's not just like a 10-song playlist. It would be like, I don't know, 30 songs from, or a symphony, or, and
Yeah.
that would lead to then more music to check out and more music to check out. And it was just this kind of, and for me, like, so much of it was brand new because I've been in the jazz world for so long. I knew some of the, like the classical music, the stuff that you should have, but she kind of opened my eyes to what is out there.
Mhm.
So a lot of classical music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very very nice soundtrack to
Yes.
have
Yeah.
in the background for those 6 months and beyond.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what else? Like, I feel like you've been listening to a few other things recently. Um,
Yeah.
you got a few new things for your birthday.
Yeah.
I'm totally blanking. Did I give you some? No, I gave you books, space
Yeah,
books,
I got books.
method
Lots of
books.
base books all the
That's
time. Yeah.
been like your like gifts for the past several years have been method books
Just
and
yeah.
CDs.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I got maybe a couple Avishai CDs recently,
Yes.
which I've been checking out, and yeah, I can't even keep track. I just like everything is there's so much good music out there. It's hard to remember it all.
Yeah. And one of the things we have a discussion about in our house quite a bit because I have thoughts about streaming music
Yeah.
and I'm still like a stick in the mud buy CD physical copy, Um, but maybe you can just talk about like how you use streaming services as a
Sh-
music consumer.
sure. Yeah. Like in it's probably different because I'm a musician, but like I use Apple Music, and the the main reason is like I remember getting the free trial for it like a few years ago, and all of a sudden it's like I typed in somebody's name to find a certain CD, and then not only would that CD come up, but then stuff that artist was on too, and
Mhm.
I would just find like all these recordings that I had no idea even existed, even from like Canadian bands, like peers that I didn't know, or like um yeah, like things that just get lost in the shuffle over the years. It's like, oh, I had no idea this was available.
Yeah.
And me being who I am, I would almost always, even though it's available on Apple Music, more than likely buy the CD as well if it's available. So I know there are a lot of not great things about the streaming industry, but that might be the one good thing. It gets your music out there, and you know maybe more discoverable. If it paid the artists a bit better, that would be even like great.
Well, yeah, what you said about when you listen and you like something, then you go in and buy the
Yes.
album. That's I feel like I've also started to utilize it that way too. Is just like, okay, you know, go and get your sort of sample, and then if you like it, then definitely support the artist.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's the thing. And I guess like the other thing too is there are some things on these streaming services that just aren't available anymore on
Yeah.
CD. Like just old catalog things that somehow made it into the streaming industry, but you can only find them maybe on eBay or something.
Yeah. 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 So
Yeah.
it's an accessibility thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it is also like I do enjoy the hunt, like trying to
Yes.
find a hard to find CD and then
Yeah.
yes, you know. Um, but yeah, that's cool. Is your What's your creative process like?
my my creative process is hours and hours and hours of practicing, and I think the the thing is just like mixing up. I mix up my routine to kind of do the things that need to be done, but also um, practicing music that I enjoy. There's nothing worse than having to learn something um, that you don't even really like in the first place.
Mhm.
So, I try to avoid that as much as possible. And I just, I'm just always trying to like kind of fine tune my playing. It seems like it's this never ending thing. And you can always find ways to improve yourself, which to me is why I like practicing. It's like you're not just doing the same thing all the time. Uh, so I have just as much fun playing like a classical piece as I would playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and trying to make it sound the right way. Um, and then learning jazz songs and learning new music, and it's just this kind of endless thing. So I'm just always inspired by that, because um, and I've never had the attitude of like being too hard on myself or my playing. So if I can just get like, the slightest bit better, it's an improvement, right? So you just keep going with it. So for me, practicing has always just been a fun thing to do.
You're so positive.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a really good trait, though. Like it shows in your musicianship as well as your personality. That sense of, like not being too hard on yourself while you're practicing. Like that, it's a very healthy mindset.
yeah.
You know?
Well, like to me, like if you're practicing something, it's because you need to practice it. It's not supposed to sound perfect. You're not supposed to have um, all these ideas down yet. Otherwise, you could just go, I don't know, watch TV,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. I mean, like, there's that element too of like not being too comfortable in
yeah,
as well. Like, you don't want to
yeah.
get.
And I think I got very much in danger of that. Especially like if you're playing live performances too much, you can sometimes get into this kind of autopilot mentality of just be like, you're you can just kind of do it without thinking about it too much. It's a dangerous thing as a musician to get into, and I think we've all been there. And but I would say over the last, especially 5 to 10 years, it's kind of been a reawakening for myself of like really loving playing the bass, and um, it's been such a positive experience for me.
Yeah, yeah. We've talked about this. Like,
Hmm.
make the music you want to make while we're
Yeah,
here, and
yeah,
yeah, make it count.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, like if to me, it doesn't matter if I'm playing at a wedding or playing in a concert hall. It's like you're just trying to sound like make music and sound as best you can in whatever the situation allows.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I've played. Yeah, I love playing like jobber gigs, so to speak, where you
yeah,
just can like, if you've got a good like-minded
yeah,
ensemble, you can be playing whatever and like
yeah,
trying new stuff and and you're just kind of in the background, so
yeah,
it'll just sound better.
yeah.
you know, absolutely. Music is music. You were talking about your lessons with your teachers, like Lauren and Kate, and more recently, and just like how even though you've practiced and practiced, you still end up getting nervous for your lesson, and
Yeah, yeah,
that sense of like when you get in your lesson, like the difference between practice and the the presentation to your teacher of what you have
yes,
practiced.
yeah.
Do you remember what you said the other day about this?
I don't remember exactly what I what I said about that, but it's definitely true. Like especially when I'm playing with the bow, it's still a little bit out of my personally, it's out of my comfort zone still.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Lauren Pierce and Kate Jones are two of the nicest people you could ever meet, there's still like all of a sudden I'm playing, and the hand starts going a little, and um it's like try playing a nice smooth bow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I think that's healthy too, and the more and it's also different because it's online too. It's like I've never met either of them in person,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I feel more and more confident every lesson I have, and it's I think it's such a natural thing.
It is a natural thing, and I think it's a healthy thing to
Yeah,
like it is an element of performance, right?
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, like so, you know, all week you've played your lesson material perfectly, like no, you know, and then you get in the lesson and it inevitably just like falls apart, just even just the slightest bit. And it's like that never happens. But
Well, some
uh
change, that change of environment, mental
yeah,
environment.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's normal. Yeah. I know. I often have students who like say, "Oh, they get really dark on themselves about not being able to exhibit what they were, reiterate what they were practicing when they get into a lesson." And I feel the same way when I'm in lessons with my teachers too.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's just part of it. Um, yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about um, like how when we first started playing together, how struck I was by your ability to know like any tune, like ever,
Yeah.
you know, um, and how supportive you were as a musician on the bandstand, especially as a singer. You're like a
Mhm.
really really supportive um, singer musician, so to speak, if there is such a thing as that. But also, like your solo playing is so melodic, and I wondered if you just wanted to talk a little bit about like your melodic approach to solo, to improvised solo.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of that just stems from realizing what the bass can do at a young age, like young age. It was like in high school, but
Oh,
yeah, and it not, hearing, as I mentioned before, like somebody like Mark Johnson or Niels Henning or Sid Peterson, and being like, oh, they're not just playing quarter notes, they're they sound like a horn player. They're they're pushing themselves on the instrument, and then like I'd hear a bass player maybe quote something that Coltrane did, and like, right, of course, it's not. You're not just supposed to learn how to play bass. You're supposed to. You're not learning bass. You're learning a musical instrument, and you're trying to find your voice on the instrument. So, I've always been big on extending the range of the instrument and trying to be as comfortable as possible throughout the entire thing. And when I was learning tunes, I wouldn't just learn how to play the bass line over it. I would learn the melodies as well, and just really, and at Humber, I was fortunate to be in the vocal ensembles. I think pretty much every year, and it you see how the vocalists approach music as well. So it it's great to see like how does the pianist do this, how does the vocalist do this, how does the horn player approach it, and you just try to add it all together and put it together on your own instrument.
yeah,
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 yeah. And in terms of like being you had mentioned about like being supportive and stuff on the bandstand and things like that. it, i I don't know if this had anything to do with it or not, but like when I was in high school, everybody that would let me sit in, whether it was like older musicians in high school or like the guys that would let me sit in like at the jam sessions, they were just very encouraging, and it wasn't like like they weren't trying to throw me off. They weren't trying to
yeah,
like they were just trying to teach me how to play and what was necessary to be a good player. Um, so I try to approach it the same way and be very welcoming on the stage. I'm not there to try and make you look bad. I'm there to try and make the band sound as good as I possibly can.
and the music, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Like if somebody gets off of a beat, you know, it's gonna sound like there's this kind of like one mentality of like, oh, like we're gonna make it sound like they're off, and you know kind of
yeah,
embarrass them on the stage a little. But to me that doesn't really serve the music whatsoever,
mm-hmm.
because then everything just sounds bad.
Yeah,
So if you can just as naturally as possible go with them, it makes the experience all that much better and more musical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any upcoming shows?
um, what are we in now? Or is it a lockdown? Is it a stay-at-home order? Like I never know what I have anymore because things get canceled all the time. Live streams get canceled. As you know, we were supposed to do a dream a Dream Logic live stream for the TD Niagara Jazz Festival, and that one, like, we almost got it in. We were going to pre-record.
Yeah.
We had planned to do it on one day. Then the lockdown happened the next day. We had decided against it just to be safe. So that got rescheduled to June 20th.
June 20th. Yep.
Yeah,
Which is a
yeah.
Sunday
And
night.
before that, and back in whatever month that this was, we did our first live stream with Jazz in Toronto,
Yes.
March 6th, wasn't it? Something
March
like that.
5th. Yeah, March 5th.
5th, yeah.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a lot of fun. It felt almost like more work than going to a gig though, because of like rearranging the living room and like all these things. Like you're inviting people into your house.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's almost easier just putting my bass in the car and going somewhere.
I know.
But musically, it was.
I did.
Musically, it was a great time. We're doing that again May 21st, something like that.
May 20th?
I don't know.
I'm getting
I
confused
seem to be off
because-
by one day.
Me too. And I think it's because like the Ontario lockdown just got extended to May 20th.
Right.
And in my mind, I just have that May 20th in my mind. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna post in ticker tape above this our actual
Yes.
date of the Jazz in Toronto live stream.
Yeah.
Or we could let's do like an overdub right now. Like let's just move our mouths and then we can like
The upcoming live stream on. Yep. I think between that, I think we've got some date coming up for sure.
We got it. But
We've nailed it.
we nailed it. And not to say, because we do like I love this Jazz in Toronto live stream
Yeah.
series. It's so great. They've been so supportive. They're doing like 6 or 7 shows a week now.
Yeah.
And everybody, is getting, it's a win-win-win situation because we get to play, people get to hear some music, and it's very intimate. It is very intimate. Like,
Yeah.
it was strange doing that at first because it was like, is anybody watching? You can't really see on your end because you're kind of in this weird like Facebook Live studio where you is anybody out there? But it does feel like a nice connection to be able to do that. And yeah, it's important. Very, very.
It is very.
So thanks.
And then
Jazz in Toronto.
yeah.
Do you have any other live streams coming up?
Yeah, actually, and before our rescheduled Dream Logic one at the beginning of June, I believe it's June 6th, I'm doing a duo concert with Doug Mundy, who's a local piano player.
Nice.
And we're doing the music of Bill Evans. So yay, because I like when he started giving me the list of songs that he wanted to do, I was like, oh great, I'm already working on those ones. I'm already working on that. Yeah. So it's just, again, like perfect timing because I love Bill Evans' music. So again, it just never really feels like practicing.
Nice. Cool. And we can get tickets for those shows for the Twilight Jazz series on the Twilight Jazz series website.
Yeah. And then hopefully, I'm hoping in the summer that some outdoor gigs happen.
Yeah.
Again, there were all these great venues that I was playing at before the lockdown, like the Crystal Chandelier in Crystal Beach and the Crystal Beach Cafe. That I know
Yeah.
it's kind of random that I have 2 gigs in Crystal Beach, but there you go. Uh,
Nice place.
yeah, Cat's Caboose in St. Catharines, Cat's Kitchen in Niagara Falls. These are all just local Niagara places that, like, they're great venues and supportive of the community as well. So I really hope that we can get back to these places in a safe way, but you know, get out there and play on the patios this summer and get some live music happening again.
Exactly. I also want to include in our list here like places like the Mate Cafe
Of course, the
downtown,
mate, yeah,
and of course like the Niagara Jazz Festival and everything
yeah,
they're doing, and so like the PAC downtown. Like there's just so many great things. Things were really cooking, you know,
yeah,
before March 2020. Things were
yeah,
really looking up. So yeah, we're just trying to support these businesses as best we can now, and I hope, yeah, patios and whatever we can do, live streams if we have to keep doing live streams,
yeah,
whatever it takes, you know.
yeah,
Let's just keep the music alive.
for sure.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about? You're gonna do a little performance for us.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. What are you gonna play?
You know, I think I will play this song. I don't know if you know this composer, but her name is Sarah Jerome. Uh, it's sorry, I had to because
I know.
that's
It's
you're
Sarah
used to it.
Jerome McBride, by the
Yes, yeah, yeah.
way.
Um, yes, I'm going to play a piece by Sarah Jerome called "We'll Remember," which is a little kind of tribute to Kenny Wheeler.
And may I just add that this was your idea, not mine?
It was my idea, mostly because of I'm like, oh wait, I can't really not that I didn't want to play the song, but I was like thinking, okay, I can't it has to be public domain, right?
Well,
So
yeah, we have to have some permissions involved
yeah,
and
like it's just like
things
these
like
weird
that.
things that you're thinking about now when you're
Yeah.
online. It's like,
Yes.
can I actually play this?
I grant you permission.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's on video that
It's
that you can't sue your own program.
no,
Yeah,
thank goodness.
yeah,
Well, I am honored that you chose that piece, and you know, you played a great solo on that tune for the our album Dream
yes.
Logic.
Thank you.
So so thank you, and here we go with Rob McBride performing "We'll Remember." Thank you so much for joining me today on Artistic Digs.
Thanks for having me. Like the commute was a little rough, but made it on time.